Have you ever wondered what really goes on behind the scenes of your favorite restaurants? The camera zooms in slowly as the narrator's voice lowers, almost conspiratorial. Tonight on Kindness Tales Live, we're about to witness something no one ever expects. A CEO going undercover, only to discover a secret that will break his heart. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. It was Friday evening, and the bustling streets of the city were alive with the aroma of spices, sizzling meat, and freshly baked bread. Thomas Blake, the CEO of a multi-million-dollar restaurant chain, stepped into Bella Vita, one of his most popular eateries. But tonight he wasn't wearing the sharp suit and gold cufflinks his reputation demanded. No, he was in a simple denim jacket and a cap pulled low over his eyes, blending into the crowd like any ordinary customer. His mission was simple, or so he thought. Experience his restaurant as any customer would and evaluate the staff and service firsthand. As he waited to be seated, Thomas observed the restaurant from the corner of his eye. The manager, oblivious to his presence, moved from table to table, offering cheerful greetings and ensuring orders were accurate. The servers scurried gracefully, balancing plates laden with steaming dishes. Everything looked perfect on the surface. Thomas nodded quietly to himself. He was satisfied, at least at first glance. Thomas was led to a small, cozy table near the kitchen door. The faint clatter of pots and pans reached his ears, along with the hum of conversations and laughter from diners. He opened the menu, flipping through familiar items, all his creations meticulously listed. It was easy to spot the signature dishes he'd personally approved. He placed his order casually, choosing the chef's special, eager to see if it would match the standard he demanded from his restaurants. As he waited, a faint sound caught his attention. At first, he thought it was just the usual kitchen bustle, the chopping of vegetables, the clanging of pans. But then it came again. A soft, almost imperceptible sound that didn't belong, the sound of someone crying. Thomas's brow furrowed. The noise seemed to be coming from the kitchen. He strained to hear it over the chatter of diners and the soft jazz playing in the background. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate, heartbreaking. Curiosity and concern pulled him out of his seat. "Excuse me," he said to the server, his voice calm but firm. "I think there's someone in the kitchen who might need help." The server blinked, puzzled, but led Thomas toward the swinging doors. As he stepped into the chaotic but organized kitchen, the aroma of garlic and herbs grew stronger. The staff was in the middle of their dinner rush, but one young woman in particular caught his eye. She was small, barely reaching the counter, with her hair tied haphazardly in a bun. Her apron was smeared with sauce, and her hands shook slightly as she tried to balance trays of food. Her eyes were red, and she was quietly sobbing behind the prep station. Careful to keep herself hidden from the rest of the staff, Thomas's heart sank. He knew immediately that this wasn't just a moment of stress. It was something deeper, something personal. He cleared his throat softly, not wanting to startle her. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The girl jumped slightly, wiping her eyes quickly and straightening up, but her trembling hands betrayed her. She hesitated, unsure whether to answer. The room seemed to slow down around them as Thomas looked at her, realizing that this was not a situation that could be solved by management protocols or company policies. Without thinking, he sat on the edge of an empty prep table, giving her his full attention. "Hey, it's okay," he said. "You don't have to face whatever is going on alone." She looked at him skeptically at first, then the tears began to fall again, unrestrained. Thomas didn't move away. He didn't offer any judgments. He simply let her speak, listening as she poured out her worries, frustrations and fears, one word at a time. Little did he know, this one encounter would change not just the young woman's life, but his own perception of what leadership really meant. Behind the laughter and clinking silverware, a silent story of struggle, resilience, and humanity was unfolding, and Thomas was about to step right into the middle of it. Thomas Blake watched as the young woman struggled to steady herself behind the prep counter. Her hands were shaking as she tried to arrange the ingredients for the next round of orders. Every movement seemed like a monumental effort, and he realized that her tears were not just a fleeting moment of frustration. They were a window into a deeper story. "Hey," Thomas said gently. "You don't have to keep everything bottled up. Take a breath. Everything's going to be okay." The young woman, still wary, glanced at him as if trying to gauge whether he was real or some kind of mirage. Finally, she let out a shaky sigh and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. I just don't know if I can do this anymore. I've been working here since I was 16, trying to support my little brother, and it's so hard." Thomas felt a pang of empathy. He had seen plenty of hard-working employees, but rarely had he encountered someone carrying such a heavy load at such a young age. His mind immediately shifted from the CEO who needed to evaluate staff performance to a human being who needed compassion. He quietly moved a chair closer and sat down at the edge of the counter, keeping his posture relaxed so as not to intimidate her. "You're doing more than most people could even imagine," he said. "Supporting your brother, working these long hours? It's not easy, but it's remarkable. Do you have anyone who can help you?" She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks once again. "No, just me. I don't want to burden anyone, so I just keep going." Thomas nodded slowly, taking in her words. He realized that in his efforts to observe the restaurant honestly, he had stumbled upon something far more significant than the quality of the food or the efficiency of the staff. He had uncovered a story of resilience, determination, and sacrifice, and more importantly, he recognized that his presence, his listening ear, might be the first real support she had ever received in this environment. As the rush continued around them, Thomas remained by her side, offering quiet words of encouragement between the sounds of orders being shouted and pots clanging. He asked simple questions about her day, her brother, and her life outside of work. Slowly, she began to open up. She spoke about her dreams, the small victories she cherished, and the fears that kept her awake at night. Thomas listened intently, absorbing every word, silently acknowledging the courage it took for her to speak. The kitchen staff around them were too busy to notice the CEO sitting on a prep table, engrossed in a conversation with one of their own. Thomas did not care about being recognized. In this moment, the titles, the wealth, and the power meant nothing. What mattered was the young woman sitting in front of him and the struggles she bore alone. After a few minutes, Thomas reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook. He scribbled down a few ideas quietly, not for critique but for potential ways to help her. He wanted to make sure that she had the support she needed, not just from him but from the organization he led. He jotted down thoughts about flexible shifts, scholarship opportunities, and mentorship programs. But he also knew that no plan on paper could replace the immediate act of kindness, listening, validating, and offering reassurance. "You're stronger than you think," Thomas said softly. "Even when it feels impossible, you've already proven you can handle more than most adults could. And you're not alone, I want to make sure of that." The young woman sniffled and managed a small, grateful smile. It was fragile yet genuine. For the first time in hours, or perhaps days, she felt seen, heard, and valued. Thomas glanced back at the dining area where his untouched meal sat on the table. Normally, the thought of a cold dish or wasted food would have annoyed him, but tonight it didn't matter. He had found something far more important than ratings or reviews. He had discovered a human story hidden behind the kitchen doors, a reminder that compassion could not be measured by profits or productivity. The camera lingers on Thomas and the young woman as the narrator returns. Sometimes, the most valuable lessons come from the most unexpected places. What Thomas decides to do next will change the lives of everyone in this restaurant. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, because you won't want to miss what happens next. The kitchen slowly regained its rhythm, but Thomas remained seated at the edge of the prep table, his mind racing. He couldn't shake the image of the young woman's tear-streaked face or the vulnerability in her voice. Something about her story struck a chord he hadn't expected. He had built an empire on efficiency, quality, and presentation, but he realized that even the finest restaurants could hide unseen struggles among their staff. "Tell me your name," Thomas said gently, breaking the comfortable silence. The young woman hesitated, glancing around to ensure no one else was watching too closely. Finally, she whispered, "Maya." Thomas nodded, committing her name to memory. It was simple, yet it carried the weight of everything she had endured. "Why haven't you told anyone about this before?" he asked, genuinely curious. Maya shrugged, her eyes downcast. "I didn't want anyone to think I'm weak. People in the kitchen, they expect you to handle it all. If I show any sign of struggle, they'll judge me or think I'm not cut out for this job. Her voice trembled, a mixture of pride and fear. Thomas's heart ached at the thought of such determination masked by silent suffering. He decided to probe carefully, not as a CEO evaluating an employee, but as a human being wanting to help. Maya, you're not weak. Anyone who carries as much responsibility as you do at your age. That's extraordinary. But strength doesn't mean doing everything alone. Sometimes asking for help is the strongest thing you can do. Maya's gaze lifted, meeting his for the first time fully. I just don't know how, she admitted. I try to keep it all inside. My brother, he depends on me. And if I falter, everything falls apart. Thomas felt a lump in his throat. The stakes were far higher than he had imagined. This wasn't just about long shifts and kitchen pressure. This was about survival, responsibility, and the courage to keep moving forward despite the weight of the world on her shoulders. Before he could respond, a sudden commotion erupted from the back of the kitchen. A tray of dishes clattered to the floor and several staff members gasped. Thomas stood immediately, instinctively moving toward the noise, but Maya waved him off. I've got it, she said firmly, rushing to help clean up. Her hands were still shaking, yet her determination was evident. She was trying to keep everything together, not just for the customers, but for the team who relied on her. As Thomas watched her work, a nagging curiosity pushed him further. He noticed a small notebook tucked into her apron pocket. On a whim, he asked, Maya, can I see that? She hesitated, then handed it over. Inside were pages filled with notes, sketches, and plans. But it wasn't what he expected. These weren't recipes or schedules. They were drawings of a small apartment, lists of bills, and careful calculations of how to make ends meet. Maya had been tracking every expense, every shift, every opportunity to ensure her brother had food, rent was paid, and their lives stayed afloat. Thomas felt a surge of emotion he rarely experienced. Here was someone working tirelessly, creatively and selflessly, often invisible to the world around her, and yet despite her brilliance and dedication, she was just scraping by, hidden in plain sight. He realized the restaurant had been fortunate to have her, but she deserved more than gratitude. She deserved tangible help. Why didn't you ever ask for help from the management? He asked softly. Maya's voice was quiet but firm. I didn't want to bother anyone. Everyone's busy. Besides, I'm supposed to handle it myself. That's what I was told when I started. Thomas shook his head slowly, realizing how often well-meaning rules and rigid structures overlooked the human beings they were meant to serve. At that moment, Thomas made a silent vow. He wouldn't let Maya's story remain hidden. He couldn't allow a system built on efficiency to ignore the very people who made it function. And more importantly, he would not let her struggle alone any longer. His mind raced with plans, ways to provide support, mentorship, and a chance for her to pursue her dreams without the crushing weight of survival on her shoulders. Thomas sat on the edge of the prep table, the notebook clutched tightly in his hands. Maya's determination and resilience weighed heavily on him, not as a CEO assessing an employee, but as a human being witnessing the quiet heroism of someone struggling against overwhelming odds. He knew he had to act, but carefully, thoughtfully, without overwhelming her or making her feel pitied. Compassion was delicate. It had to be offered with respect and dignity. Tell me more about your brother, Thomas said softly, leaning slightly forward. Maya paused, blinking away tears that had begun to form again, then described her younger sibling, 10 years old, bright-eyed, and endlessly curious. She spoke of the dreams she had for him, the nights she stayed awake worrying if she could afford his school supplies, and the little victories that kept her going, seeing him smile, hearing him laugh, knowing he had food on his plate. Every word tugged at Thomas's heart. This wasn't just about a struggling employee. This was about a young woman sacrificing her own comfort for someone else's future. Thomas's mind raced with ideas. He could offer immediate financial support, perhaps discreetly provide scholarships or stipends for Maya and her brother. But he also knew that real change needed to be structural, not just a one-time handout. He needed to create opportunities that would give her stability, allow her to grow, and empower her rather than foster dependency. He began brainstorming quietly, sketching notes in his notebook while speaking with Maya intermittently, asking gentle questions about her long-term aspirations. What would you do if you didn't have to worry about money for a year? He asked. Maya looked startled. her eyes widening at the question. I'd finish my studies. I've always wanted to go to culinary school, but I never thought I could afford it. I thought my life would always be about keeping my brother safe and keeping food on the table. Thomas smiled softly, feeling a deep sense of purpose settle in his chest. He knew exactly what had to be done. Then we're going to make that happen, Thomas said firmly. Maya looked at him incredulously, unsure whether he was serious or playing a cruel joke. I mean it, he continued. You're brilliant, hardworking, and selfless. It's time someone invested in your future. Not just the restaurants, but yours. We'll figure out a plan so you can study, grow, and still provide for your brother without sacrificing your dreams. Her eyes filled with tears again, but this time they were tears of hope rather than despair. I don't know what to say, she whispered, her voice trembling. Thomas shook his head. You don't have to say anything. Just let me help. You've carried so much alone for so long. It's time someone stood beside you. Over the next hour, Thomas and Maya talked through practical steps. He promised flexible scheduling, financial support for her brother, and a path to culinary school. He also discussed mentorship, pairing her with experienced chefs who could guide her skills, and integrating her into higher-level management opportunities when she was ready. Thomas was meticulous, wanting to ensure that the plan was realistic, sustainable, and empowering. Meanwhile, the rest of the kitchen staff remained unaware of the private conversation unfolding just beyond their sight. They continued their work, oblivious to the quiet revolution occurring at the edge of the prep table. Thomas noticed small details about the team dynamics, the camaraderie, the exhaustion, the unspoken hierarchy, and realized that many others might be silently struggling, just like Maya. As he finished outlining the plan, Thomas placed the notebook gently on the counter. Maya, none of this changes who you are or the incredible work you've been doing, but it opens doors, and sometimes it's okay to accept help. Strength isn't only in carrying the weight, it's in knowing when to share it. Maya nodded, her face glowing with a mixture of relief, gratitude, and newfound determination. Thomas stood, straightening his jacket and feeling a rare sense of fulfillment. In all his years as a CEO, he had learned about strategy, efficiency, and profit margins, but nothing compared to the profound lesson he was learning now, that leadership meant caring for people, not just processes. By investing in Maya, he was investing in humanity, and the ripple effect would reach far beyond this one kitchen. The days that followed were nothing short of remarkable. Thomas Blake returned to his corporate routine, but he never forgot the young woman he had met in that bustling kitchen. True to his word, he quietly implemented a series of changes designed to support Maya and others like her. Flexible schedules, mentorship programs, and financial assistance for staff with pressing personal responsibilities. Yet, he also remained in contact with Maya, ensuring that the promises he made were meaningful, tangible, and empowering. For Maya, life began to shift in ways she had never imagined. The stress of balancing endless shifts with caring for her brother lessened. She enrolled in culinary school, finally pursuing the dream she had buried beneath years of survival. The restaurant allowed her to attend classes while maintaining her income, and her colleagues, once unaware of her struggles, now rallied around her with encouragement and respect. Every day she felt a growing sense of hope and confidence that had been missing from her life for so long. Thomas visited the restaurant one afternoon, this time without the disguise, and Maya's eyes widened in surprise. "Mr. Blake?" she whispered, nearly unable to believe he was standing before her. He smiled warmly. "I wanted to see how my favorite chef is doing," he said, giving her a light, encouraging nod. Maya laughed softly, a sound free of tension, and led him through the kitchen. It was a place still full of controlled chaos, but now it carried a new energy, one infused with hope, camaraderie, and shared purpose. As they walked, Thomas observed the changes firsthand. Staff members smiled more openly, teamwork improved, and the kitchen hummed with an energy that went beyond skill. It carried the weight of care, empathy, and understanding. He realized that when you invest in people, the benefits ripple outward in ways that numbers and charts could never capture. Maya's courage and his compassion had sparked a transformation that no policy or procedure alone could achieve. Later that evening, Thomas and Maya shared a quiet moment in the empty restaurant. Maya looked at him with gratitude in her eyes. "I can't thank you enough," she said softly. "You didn't just help me. You changed how I see myself and my future." Thomas shook his head, a humble smile on his face. "No, Maya, you changed your life. I just helped remove a few obstacles along the way. Remember, the strength was always inside you." Maya's younger brother, now confident and happy, sometimes accompanied her after school, watching as his sister worked and learning the value of perseverance, determination, and compassion. Thomas often noticed the small ways Maya encouraged and nurtured him, just as she had been supported. It was a beautiful cycle, one that started with a simple act of listening, empathy, and human kindness. Months later, Maya graduated from culinary school with honors, stepping confidently into a promising career. Thomas attended her graduation quietly, proud but unassuming, content in knowing that she had flourished not because of him, but because someone finally believed in her. She had been given a chance, yes, but she had seized it with the same courage and determination that had first caught his attention in that kitchen. Back at Bella Vita, the restaurant thrived not just because of its menu or service, but because of the culture of care and understanding Thomas had nurtured. Employees felt valued, seen, and empowered to pursue their dreams just as Maya had. And Thomas learned a lesson that would stay with him forever. True leadership is measured not by profit margins or awards, but by the lives you touch and the difference you make in the world. As the camera slowly pans out from the restaurant, the narrator's voice returns, soft yet powerful. One act of compassion can change lives in ways we never imagine. Thomas's journey from CEO to human ally shows us that kindness is the greatest form of leadership. If this story moved you, make sure to like this video and subscribe to Kindness Tales Live, because inspiring stories like Maya's deserve to be shared with the world. The screen fades to black, leaving viewers with the warmth of hope, the strength of resilience, and the undeniable truth that when people are seen, heard, and supported, their lives can transform in unimaginable ways.